Get started. Welcome to Herren Project's webinar on healthy coping strategies for overall wellness and long-term recovery. This is a part of a series of events that Herren Project is putting on this week for Wellness Week with Herren. I hope you get an opportunity to check out a lot of the other things as well. They're all up on our website at herrenproject.org. So just a few housekeeping things to start. I will not, I will be, there'll be a few parts of the presentation where I will be asking for input from you guys. So when I do that, feel free to put any feedback you have in the Q&A button. It should be either at the top of your screen, the bottom of your screen. If you're on a smartphone or device, you might have to touch the screen to have it pop up. But please use that Q&A button. If you have any pertinent questions, as we're going, feel free to ask them, but give me a little time because I might not be able to get to it right in the moment. But just so you know, there will be a Q&A at the very end. So that would be the best opportunity for you to ask questions. But again, if something comes up for you in the moment and you really need an answer at that point, you can feel free to ask it in the Q&A button. Okay, so going forward, oh, my screen doesn't want to move forward. Let's see if that, no. Sorry, technical difficulty. There we go. Okay, so who is the Herren Project? We were founded by Chris Herren. He's been in long-term recovery since August 1st of 2008. He was a former professional basketball player, played for the Celtics. And we are his nonprofit organization. We offer free resources and support for treatment, recovery, and prevention of substance use disorder. We are Chris's nonprofit that he founded to give back after he started speaking in school systems and became pretty successful. So he wanted to give back to the community. So that's where we were born. And Terry is asking, should we be able to see you? Not yet. I have my camera off just because I find it distracting during the presentation, but I will turn it back on at the end, Terry. Okay, so who am I? I am a licensed independent clinical social worker in the state of Massachusetts. I am currently the director of clinical services for the Herren Project. I also have a private practice on Cape Cod in Massachusetts. I received my MSW from Boston University in 2009. I've been working in this field for longer than I like to admit at this point. I specialize in addiction recovery, trauma, chronic mental health issues, and I've been working with quite a few adolescents in the past few years as well. So at the end of this webinar, I'm hoping that you're going to understand the concept of self-care, know the difference between a maladaptive and adaptive coping strategies, and don't worry if you don't understand those terms because we're going to cover them. Identify one adaptive coping strategy that you use every day, basically means positive coping strategy. Understand the concept of boundaries and how they relate to self-care. Those of you out there that know me or have worked with me know that boundaries for me are the foundation of everything, of living a happy life, and many of us struggle with it. So we're going to cover that. We're going to learn 2 common evidence-based adaptive coping strategies. So what that means is that there has been research done on these, and they prove to help you create a happier life. So, and just so everybody's aware, we will be practicing 1 deep breathing exercise. We will also be at the very end, I will take you through a guided meditation. So just be forewarned, if those aren't your things, it's okay if you sit back and wait, but I'm hoping you're going to join us for them because they're both really great practices. And yep, so those are our objectives for today. So let's just hop right in. First of all, we want to define stress, right? Because that's why we're all here. That's why we need coping strategies. So what is stress? Stress is basically anxiety, right? When you've got things in your life or, things about yourself that you don't like, that causes a lot of turmoil within your body. So now let's talk a little bit about what anxiety actually is. It's basically your fight or flight. So when we were cavemen, we developed this ability to survive. It's a survival tactic. And if you're walking through the woods, right, and you come across a lion, Your body has to do certain things in order to survive that lion attack. And this is where we were when we were cavemen. We were walking through the woods, foraging, hunting, those sorts of things. So we come across a lion, and what would give us the best chance of survival? So our body wants to do a bunch of things. First of all, our eyes dilate so we can see far in order to run, okay? Um, our heart rate is going to increase. And basically what that is doing is it's causing you to breathe heavier, right? So you're going to bring in more oxygen, so the heart can pump that to the muscles to make the muscles as strong as possible. So if any of you have ever had a panic attack or, dealt with severe stress, you'll know that your heart rate, all of a sudden, some people feel like they're having a heart attack because their heart starts to pump really, really, really fast. And this is why. It's because if we want to survive a lion attack, our muscles have to be as strong as possible. So that oxygen is going to go into our lungs, into our blood, and then the heart is going to pump it out to our muscles to make us as fast and as strong as possible in case we have to run or we need to fight. So there are other interesting things that our body also does. And this one, oftentimes people are surprised to hear, and it makes a ton of sense. But your body, you want to be as light as possible in case you have to run, in case you have to fight. So your stomach wants to empty, right? So it's going to come up or go out one way or another. So oftentimes people that deal with chronic stress will have stomach problems, stomach aches, diarrhea, nausea, those kinds of things. And this is actually why. And kind of like to joke sometimes that this is where that old adage, I almost pooped my pants, comes from, because you get really scared and the lion is there with you, where your mind, your body thinks that, so it tries to empty out your stomach. The other thing that's interesting is that the mind will go blank. So if you're standing there in front of a lion, your body doesn't want to take that extra 3 seconds to think about the lion, because you might end up dying in those 3 seconds. So your brain is going to shut off the critical thinking part, and it's going to work right from that middle part of the brain where all of our reflexes come from. So people will often say, my mind got foggy, I couldn't even think, right? And this explains testing anxiety too, where you know all the information and you walk into a test and your mind just goes incredibly blank. You can't think, you can't talk. It's because you have kicked in the fight or flight, and now your brain is working on reflex, right? So if we think about this in a broad term of today's life, it doesn't really make a lot of sense, right? It made a lot of sense when we were fighting lions, but we're not fighting lions anymore. And to have the mechanism, because your brain can't tell the difference between perceived stress and actual stress. So a perceived threat or an actual threat is a lion, perceived threat is, the test. So your body is going to react in exactly the same way as it would if there was a lion in the room with you, right? So this is what's going on in our bodies when we're feeling stress, feeling anxiety. All of these things are happening. And we got to figure out how we're going to shut it off, especially if we're about to take a test, right? Because it's just not effective in that scenario. It's not effective actually in the majority of the scenarios that we have today. So this is what we talk about when we talk about managing stress and self-care, right? Self-care is a way that we manage stress, and the evidence-based practices earlier are a type of self-care. So we're going to kind of go forth now and break it down and talk about what self-care is. So it's a multidimensional, multifaceted process of purposeful engagement strategies that promote healthy functioning and enhanced well-being, right? So this kind of an umbrella term of a whole different type of things that we might engage in order to take care of ourselves. And why? Why do we do it? Because we want to become resilient. The more resilient we become, the happier we are, right? I used to work with a psychiatrist years ago who would always say, it's not about the bumps in the road of life, okay? We like to focus on the bumps of life, but they're not actually the issue. The issue is how we navigate them. There's always going to be bumps. You know, I've had many people come to see me that say, I'm here because my doctor said I have to remove stress from my life. And I often say, well, if you could figure out how to do that, please let me know, because we'll be millionaires. There's really no way to remove stress from life. They kind of come together. But what we can do is learn how to navigate the bumps, right? How to navigate around them, develop resiliency. And that is where we get happiness. And I just also want to throw out there is that we only grow in times of stress, in times of pain, right? Nobody has ever made a change in their life when they were comfortable. So although being in pain, being stressed out feels awful, oftentimes they can bring us the biggest reward if we can take the time to really think through and create strategies to manage it. And once you create those strategies, they're there for you forever, right? They can never be taken away from you. So the next bump you hit, you're going to have a plan to help you with that. And by the way, the definition of resiliency is the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties. So the harder your life, the quicker you can recover from that, the more resiliency you have. I also want to throw in there that self-care is sort of an umbrella term, and it's the things we do to make ourselves feel better. But what are coping skills, right? You can kind of use the two terms interchangeably, but we're going to move on to talk about the coping skills part because it's kind of under the umbrella of self-care, and it's more related to the things that we practice, that we can, because a skill is something that we practice, right? So if I want to learn to play soccer, right, which is a skill, I'm going to have to practice playing soccer. So we can't expect any of the things that we're going to talk about today to work for us unless we're practicing them, which is really, really an important part of this. When we talk about meditation, deep breathing, oftentimes I'll ask my clients to practice this from home. They'll come back, they'll say, it doesn't work. I tried it, doesn't work. So then we talk about, well, when did you practice? When were you doing this? Well, I had a really stressful day at school and I came home and I decided to try deep breathing and it did nothing for me. Well, a big part of that is because the person was not practicing this when they were at rest. So you can't expect to learn to be a good soccer player if you're jumping out on the field in the middle of a game, right? If you've never played soccer, you're not going to start in the middle of a game. You need to practice first. You need to learn the skills first, right? Without the pressure of the game. So if you want to be able to utilize these tools effectively and well, you have to practice. And I want you to practice when things are good, because the more you practice when things are good, the more you're training your nervous system to be able to utilize it when you're already anxious. So basically, it's training the nervous system. You guys know how to do this. You know what this is. Most of you have learned to swim, have learned to jump rope, have learned to drive a car, right? All of those things require skill-based practice, right? In order to get your body to do what you want it to do. That's your nervous system that you're training. So if you want to train your nervous system to calm itself, right? And the fight or flight, it's kind of like a light switch. It's either on or off. It can't be in the middle. So we want to train our nervous system to flip that switch off. And these are the things that we do in order to flip that switch. And we need to practice them as much as possible in order to be able to utilize them when things get difficult. Okay, so what is a coping skill? A psychological mechanism consciously utilized to solve personal and interpersonal problems in order to try to master, minimize, or tolerate stress and conflict. The word in that sentence to me that speaks the loudest is consciously. So this has to be a choice. It has to be something that you are choosing to do and choosing to practice in order to master, right? That's another word in the sentence that's really important. We have to consciously practice in order to master. And I know I'm saying this a lot over and over again, but I can't stress that enough, that in order for you to become, or these skills to become something that you can really implement in your life to make change, you have to practice. And what are these things that we're talking about? What are these coping skills? Breathing exercises, mindfulness activities, meditation. And we are going to talk about all of those, and we're going to practice a few of them as well. Okay, so next we're going to get into the how. How do I take care of myself? What do I do in order to minimize my stress and create resiliency, right? So the first thing we want to cover is maladaptive coping strategies, kind of a big social worky word there. Maladaptive basically means negative. So there are things that I do that make me feel better, but also might potentially have a consequence. For those of you who are out there that have used substances, for those of you who are out there who have a loved one who have used substances, that is a maladaptive coping strategy. So it is something that makes us feel better in the moment. People would not use drugs and alcohol if there wasn't a benefit or a gain. And sometimes I also like to point out that oftentimes for a lot of people, that substance, that use actually might have saved their life for a period of time before it started to go in the opposite direction. So I know most of us don't want to acknowledge that part of it, but it is true that it is a coping strategy and it has a lot of benefit in the beginning. The maladaptive part comes in the end when it starts to take away more than it's giving, right? And can potentially also really harm you or kill you. Another one is overeating and undereating. A lot of us can relate to that one if we don't have a substance use disorder, right? A lot of times you've had a really tough day and you want to come home. I crave carbs. So I want mashed potatoes and gravy or cake or something like that. And that does actually create changes in the brain, which leads to feeling better in the moment. But again, maladaptive, because there is a cost on the other side of that, right? I gain weight, I'm diabetic, my blood sugars get out of control. So it creates more problems in the end. Arguing with a loved one, it's another one. We can call that projection, if you want the fancy term. So I've had a tough day. I come home and I just decide I'm going to take it out on my significant other or my parent or my child, right? I don't decide, really. I shouldn't use that word, but it just happens that I'm stressed and they do something that annoys me and I just unleash on them all of my tension. We've all done that to some degree at one time or another, I think. Self-harm, it's kind of, to me, the same as using drugs or alcohol. There's definitely a downside to that. Scars, infections. It's one a lot of people don't feel comfortable discussing, but it's kind of a big one for our kids right now. So we have to. It is an addiction, just like substances can be, or the eating issues. Any other risk-taking behavior, including sexual promiscuity, that's another way. All of these things do create brain changes that lead to us feeling better, which is why we do them. Most of them have a negative side to it, or they start to really take away from our life and create more problems than they're solving. So and this is one of the opportunities you guys have to interact. Anybody have any other things that they do or any other things that they can think of? For things that you have done or seen that may be a maladaptive coping strategy. If you can think of any, feel free to throw it into that Q&A box on your screen, top or bottom. Sometimes you might need to touch the screen in order to see it. So if you have any ideas, or if you have a question up until this point, now's the time, throw it out there. I know some of the stuff can be a little bit technical. I try to make it accessible to everybody, but I can be a little bit of a science geek sometimes. So every once in a while, I can kind of take it a little bit too far. So if you have any questions, right now is the time. Shoot it out there. Nope. Okay. So we are going to move on to adaptive coping strategies. So adaptive coping strategies are the opposite of maladaptive. They're things that we do to take care of ourselves that actually don't have any consequences or side effects. And I have a list here of things, finding a good therapist or life coach. Can be a really important piece for families or people who are struggling with a loved one that's using substances. Oftentimes we don't tend to focus on ourselves. We focus so much on them that we don't realize all of the things that we're doing that are contributing to our own unhappiness. So we really need to look to reach out, find a therapist, or any other issue that you're having in your life, right? There's still some people out there that think that you have to be in crisis in order to find a therapist. That's not necessarily true. I would rather have my support system set up prior to the crisis. So when the crisis hits or when the bump hits, I have a place to go. So finding a good therapist or a life coach, creating a positive support system. So I know I've had people throughout my life that necessarily haven't been positive, and they cause me more stress than they take away. So trying to move away from that and creating a support system in your life of people who really make you feel good, who you feel supported by and loved. Obviously, none of this is going to be perfect, but really trying to surround yourself by, and usually it's not a ton of people, maybe 1, 2, 3 tops who you feel comfortable enough to really be able to go to. And also, by the way, in that, making sure that you're not picking who you talk to based on, who's going to answer the question in the way you want it answered. Making sure these people will be honest with you and will actually help you move forward. Okay, let's see. We have a question. I have a good therapist and I went to rehab. I find it hard to be isolated from my family and friends, which are in New York. What suggestions do you have to develop a support system in Las Vegas where I live? It's a great question. I'm from the other end of the country, so I can't really answer that on what, in your particular area, but in typical times, my answer would be to try to get yourself involved in some groups or some clubs. It's very difficult right now because of COVID, but there's still a lot of things that you can access online. If you're in recovery, which it sounds like you have, I think, getting tied into a 12-step meeting, which is AA, NA, or any of those can be very helpful. A lot of them are online right now. Herren Project also offers a support group that you can access for free, right? You can get all the information on our website. There's also many different types. There's refuge recovery. There's a whole bunch of others if the 12 steps aren't right for you, but trying to get yourself involved in some kind of community, I think, is extremely helpful. And, when you meet people, just making sure that you ask for their number, you reach out and you ask people if you think they'll be a positive support, that you try to connect with them in some way. And I'm glad to hear this person also said that he has been attending the Herren group and he finds it beneficial. So that's awesome. I'm really, really glad to hear that. Okay, so back to our adaptive coping strategies. Taking a break is huge. Sometimes we just need a timeout. We just need to say, okay, you know what? I need to take a day off. I need to go away alone this weekend. I need to have a couple of days without talking to anyone. Or in this particular relationship, I need a break from this person. That's okay. Give yourself permission to do that. Sleep, exercise, and nutrition. They're all super important when it comes to our own personal wellness and taking care of ourselves. I know those things are often the things that go by the wayside first when we're feeling unwell, but they can't, especially you got to get a good night's sleep. Make that a priority. Try to make sure you're eating at least some nutritious food. I know the carbs are really easy when you're not feeling good, but try to at least get in there some green vegetables and some fruits as well. And move your body, even if it's for 10 minutes, even if it's just a walk around the block, getting some vitamin D out there. Super important for wellness. Saying no, learning to say no is incredibly important. And that's where next we're going to get into the boundaries, but learning to say no when you really don't have the extra. A lot of us just are people pleasers and we say yes to almost everything until we start to fall apart. We can't do that. We have to be honest with people and we have to be honest with ourselves about what we're able to manage. Forgive others and yourself, right? You got to forgive. Holding on to anger and resentment, it really doesn't help anybody. And it actually, if it's anger against someone else, it's hurting you more than it's hurting them. Anger only hurts the container in which it resides. So really need to work towards forgiveness. And again, it's not for the other person. So even if you're still angry at them and you don't think they deserve forgiveness, do it for yourself because you deserve to feel well. And forgiving ourselves sometimes is often even harder than forgiving others. So if you're the kind of person that believes in forgiveness, then you gotta turn that on yourself too, and remind yourself that it's okay. It's okay for us to be human. It's okay for us not to be perfect. Ask for help. That kind of goes back to the first one, finding a good therapist or life coach. You've got to learn to, we all have to learn to ask for help, right? It's the only way that we're really going to be able to manage life in a productive way. Trying to do this in a vacuum all by yourself, thinking you have everything managed, which by the way, I get, because I've lived my life like that. And sometimes I still feel myself struggling with the no, I'm fine, I have it, even though I know I'm not. So allowing others to help us is incredibly important. And now we're down to the three biggies: deep breathing, meditation, boundaries. And I should have mindfulness there too. They're kind of all go together. And those are the three that we're going to focus on in this webinar. But before we move on, I want to ask, does anyone out there have any other ideas, any other things that you do to take care of yourself? You know, a lot of us have a lot of different things that we do. For me, one that I do frequently is take a book to the tub. I think when I was a teenager, and a lot of people in my house, not a ton of boundaries. You could never really have a quiet moment. So I learned that people left me alone when I was in the tub. So starting when I was a teenager, I used to take a good book into the tub and just sit. Sometimes I'd be in there for an hour and a half. I still do it. It's just a time for me to take that break and to be alone and to kind of get out of my head for a little while. So I'm sure you can come up with a bunch that you do. Most of us have developed some coping skills at this point. Okay, hold, we got a question. Spa day. Yes, absolutely. Taking a day to go to the spa, that's self-care, and you should never feel guilty for having done that. It's a great way to take care of yourself. I like to do that with a good friend of mine. We'll take a day and just go there and just relax, leave our phones somewhere else. Oftentimes they won't even let you bring them in, which is great for me. And just taking the day to relax. Okay, so next, we're going to talk about boundaries, which is really one of my favorite topics. Like I said, those of you that know me have probably heard me do a ton of discussion around boundaries. It's something I struggled with in my life for many, many, many years. And if you're looking to create happiness and resiliency, you have to learn where your boundaries are, and you have to become comfortable setting them. And I say become comfortable because the vast majority of us are not comfortable setting boundaries. We usually put ourselves behind the other people in our lives, or we have expectations of other people based on what we ourselves would do. And then we say yes to a lot of things and then feel like we're being taken advantage of when we have never actually set a boundary. So I always like to make sure I throw that out there. In my own life, I will not allow myself to be angry with anybody for violating one of my boundaries if I haven't set one. So I can't expect nobody to call me after 9 p.m., which, by the way, I don't ever want to answer my phone after 9 p.m. I can't be upset with somebody if they call me at 9:15 repeatedly if I've never said, hey, listen, I don't take phone calls after 9 p.m. Right. So that's a rule that I have in my own personal life, which means that I have to hold myself accountable for setting the boundaries. And it also helps me deal with a lot less resentment from other people. So what is a boundary? It's a point or a limit that indicates where two things become different. So we have a fancy word in social work called enmeshment. And basically that means that the lines between two or more people are blurred. There's no direct boundary between the two of them. You don't know where one person ends and another begins, right? Boundaries they're unofficial rules about what should not be done or about what should be done. Right now, so we have a lot of unofficial rules in say in the grocery stores right now. Maybe they're a little bit official, but you have to follow the arrows and go down one way and come back the other now, right? Like that's a boundary that is being enforced by the supermarkets based on the, COVID and trying to manage this. So we have a ton of unofficial rules in our society. Close talking is another good example of that. Some people's bubbles are various sizes. So where one person might have a really small bubble and it's okay for someone to get really close in their face and talk, and for other people it might be bigger. And we don't know where everybody else is, as sometimes this is cultural. So we have to figure out where our bubble is and ask people to step back or take a step back ourselves. And it's a limit that defines acceptable behavior. So kind of the same thing we were just talking about. So when we set boundaries, I think a lot of us, myself included, think that we have to be angry or arguing, or we do it in a way that's caustic and it causes issues. I'm giving you permission right now to not have to do that. We don't have to be angry when we're setting a boundary. We don't have to wait until we're so resentful that it becomes a fight. And actually, I would prefer you not. I would prefer you set the boundary the first or second time the issue occurs, because otherwise the resentment will end up eating you alive and it will ruin a lot of your relationships. So what we want to always do it with love. We want to use compassion, right? Set clear limits in advance. So if I don't want somebody to call me after 9 p.m., right? I don't have to wait till they call me at 9:15 and then yell at them. I can let the phone go to voicemail at 9:15, call them back the next day and say, hey, I know I'd never said this, so totally cool, no big deal. But I don't accept phone calls after 9. So just in the future, if you wouldn't mind respecting that, right? We don't have to do it with anger. We can just do it very kindly. You allow for natural consequences. So that one is more related to substance use disorder, and for loved ones who are, or adolescents, when loved ones are setting boundaries, oftentimes they try to fix. So, or before they set boundaries, they're trying to fix. So allowing natural consequences, that should have probably been removed from this slide. So I apologize for that. Another piece with setting boundaries, take some space. If you don't have an immediate answer, it is okay. If somebody calls you and says, hey, I need a ride to the airport on Wednesday, can you do it? You don't have to give them an immediate answer. And if they're calling and saying, hey, I need a ride to the airport in 3 hours, can you do it? If there's not enough space and time, that's on them, not on you. So making sure that you are able to decide, and you don't have to give an answer right in that moment. You can say, I'm not sure about that. Let me think about it and I'll get back to you. And you don't need to give a reason why either. And that's the piece I see a lot of people struggle with, including myself, is that oftentimes I'll try to give an excuse or tell them why. But sometimes it's just your mental health and you don't need to say that. So the more you can be rooted in your, hey, I'm not sure, let me get back to you. The more confident you are in how you say that, the less likely they are to push against your boundary. If you're more like, I don't know, let me think about it, I might have something to do, you're going to give them more space to argue with you, which you don't want, or to ask questions, right? So confidently say, hey, listen, I'm not sure, I'll get back to you. Being aware of your own needs, sometimes you're going to need to take space to be even able to do that. So if your gut is telling you that this doesn't feel right, take some space, reflect on it, try to figure out what your needs are, and then give the answer. And give yourself permission to do that, okay? What we want to avoid when setting boundaries is the blaming and shaming. Is the picking up the phone at 9:15 when they call and say, what the hell are you thinking? Why are you calling me at 9:15? I don't take phone calls after 9, right? It's not their fault that they pushed against my boundaries. They might have no problem being on the phone until 10 or 11 at night, right? So we can't assume that they are overstepping our boundaries, because theirs might be different than ours. So avoid the blaming and the shaming and the anger. Try not to set a limit that you're unable to hold. So if you tell your child they did something wrong and you say you're going to take their phone for the next week, right? But then you don't take it, or you give it back within 24 hours, all you're doing is teaching them that your boundaries they're able to push your boundaries, that they don't need to respect them. So if you know you're not going to be able to take the phone for a full week, then don't say a full week. If you think maybe a day, then say a day. The worst thing that you can do is set a boundary with somebody that you're not able to hold firm. Don't offer protection from constant. That's another one. I'm sorry, they should have looked better at this slide. That should not be on here. Try not to succumb to the pressure of immediate gratification. So immediate gratification is when people, it's back to the ride, right? I need a ride and I need it into the airport and I need it in 3 hours. And they're pressuring you because they're uncomfortable. Them waiting till last minute is not your problem. So they're going to want immediate gratification. They're going to want you to immediately say yes, so they don't have to be uncomfortable anymore. But their discomfort's not your problem, that's theirs, right? So try not to succumb to that. I know that's one of the hard ones. I still struggle with that, but try not to. Try to say to them, listen, I don't know. I'm not sure. Or how about, I can't today. It's not your job to make them feel better. And obviously, don't tolerate any abuse of any kind. When it comes to setting boundaries, especially if you have a loved one that's using substances or an adolescent, people can become very abusive, especially in the beginning stages of setting boundaries. I actually ran a group last night where we talked quite a bit about this, that when you're first starting to set boundaries with somebody, they are going to get angry because the boundaries, the lack of boundaries is working for them. The boundaries work for you, but the lack of boundaries work for them. So they're getting something out of your lack of boundary, right? This is not intentional. They're not trying to hurt you, but we all want the path of least resistance. So if you've been fixing something and you're getting resentful, so now you're trying to implement some boundaries on them, you really need to expect them to get angry, to up the ante is what we call it. So they're going to push really hard against it to try to get it to go back to the way it was. So if you start practicing this and all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, it's gotten so much worse. Why did I ever do this? Just hang in there a little bit longer. It's going to get worse before it gets better. Almost always does. It's normal human behavior. Okay, so, and how do you protect your boundaries? Be aware of your own needs, be aware of your own comfort zone. So this is about what you want and what you need, not about them. Turn off your phone and don't answer the door. If somebody's really pushing against your boundary, take some space. That's a really important one. And remember, it's okay for your loved one or whoever you're struggling with this in your life. It's okay for them to sit in their anxiety of not knowing your answer right away, right? You don't have to give them instant gratification. Don't let their crisis push you into feeling like you have to fix everything, right? That's probably what got you into this to begin with. So knowing our own needs, knowing what would make us feel comfortable, setting that boundary and then holding it firm is really important. And then this piece, just to end our discussion about boundaries, it is not their responsibility to respect your boundary. It is your responsibility to set your boundary and to hold it firm. You can't put that on other people. Everybody's boundaries are different. Okay, so you cannot blame somebody else for not respecting your boundary. I want you to take it as it's your goal. It's on you to make sure you're holding that boundary firm. You're setting it in a clear manner and you're holding it firm, right? This kind of goes back to what I was talking about in the very beginning about how I will never allow myself to be upset with somebody else for overstepping a boundary that I never set, right? That's on me. That's my responsibility. So, and also remember that oftentimes, if you have some relationships that aren't necessarily healthy, and you feel resentful, right? You can probably, if that's happening to you right now, you can probably, I'd bet all the money that I have that you probably are having an issue with boundaries, right? So, so making sure that you take that and you know, okay, so I'm having trouble setting boundaries in this relationship, right? That you then go forth and you figure out what you need, You tell them clearly, and then every time they push on it, you are the one that holds the boundary, right? Okay, so next we're going to move on to talking a little bit about mindfulness. I'm sure some of you have heard this term before. Mindfulness it's a practice. It's been around for, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of years, I would guess. It's a way, it's basically a therapeutic technique. And it's in a lot of Eastern philosophy religions like Buddhism and whatnot. And it's a mental state achieved by focusing one's awareness on the present moment. So we're talking about focusing on the right now, right? One of the things that we know is that depression lives in the past. So if we're spending a lot of time sitting around thinking about what has happened, we're not we're probably going to get sad, and we have no control over that, right? Anxiety lives in the future. So if you're spending a lot of time thinking about what may happen, like for me, I have this webinar today. Oh my God, is it going to go okay? Am I going to do okay? That's going to bring me anxiety, right? I have no control over that in that moment. There's only one time that I have control over, and that is right now. And it's not easy for us to do this. It's not easy for us to stay in the present moment, which is why we have to practice. And we have to practice mindfulness. And there are different ways in which we can bring ourselves back to the present moment. Okay. Oh, and it's also related to not judging. So being in the present moment without judging. So just being able to be present, have the thoughts that we have the feelings that we have, don't judge them. You can acknowledge them. And how do we do this? So here's some of the activities that, I'm sure a lot of you have practiced some of these. Coloring, if you are sitting there with a crayon, I can even remember the smell of the crayon, right? So you're getting that, the sense of smell, that you're activating that. So you can smell the crayon, you can color, notice the colors, notice the feel of the wax on the paper. All of those things are going to bring you back to the moment. Yoga, that's a big one. This is an evidence-based practice. There are studies done on it. It's actually a spirituality, which, by the way, I'm not getting into in this particular webinar, but we are very spiritual beings as human beings. So finding some sort of spiritual outlet, not to be confused with religion. Religion is spiritual, but spirituality isn't necessarily religion. So something that's going to bring you closer to any kind of higher power, whatever you believe in, is also a really important part of wellness. And yoga is a spiritual practice. So that is one way to do it. Being one with nature. So going outside, smelling the air, noticing the leaves, feeling the air, whether it's crisp or warm, how it feels in your lungs, and really paying attention to that. That is being present in the moment with what is going on right now. Another one, smelling flowers, right? You can do that when you're out in nature. If you're feeling like you're being pulled, a body scan can help, which is just sitting back. Okay, my mind's being pulled in all of these different directions. I'm just going to stop and I'm going to notice my body. What do my feet feel like? What does my head feel like? Right? What's going on in my stomach? And just really being aware of how your body feels. Eating, sitting there with something you enjoy, really feeling how it tastes in your mouth, really noticing how it smells, noticing how it feels in your mouth or in your hands. Bathing, I say bathing because, one of mine is taking a bath, but it can also be a shower. And if you go in and you turn the water a little bit too hot or a little bit too cold, that will give you even more of an in the moment sense, because you can really feel it. What does this feel like on my skin? Where do I feel it the most, right? What does it smell like being in here? What does it feel like to have my body submerged in water? Paying attention to all of those things. Deep breathing and meditation also too. Two that we're actually going to practice going forward. And also, again, anything else? there's any other things that you're doing that you find really helpful in your own lives and your own practice, please feel free to throw it out there in the Q&A box. I'd love to hear some of the activities that help you in everyday life. Do have one question. I see this is being recorded and would love to share it with others. Will this be available later? Yep, it absolutely will be available later. It will be up on our website. It will also be up on our YouTube channel. And I think, don't quote me on this because I'm not a technical person, but I'm pretty sure that Zoom will send you out a recording. If you registered for it, Zoom will automatically send you out a recording that will only last for maybe a month, but you will have it there. And again, it will be up on our website, herrenproject.org, and the Herren Project YouTube channel. And yes, praying is another one. Thank you, Pat. Just said praying. Absolutely. Any kind of connection with a higher power is a great mindfulness activity, and being able to let go a lot of your worries and hand it over to a higher power is really probably one of the best ways to move forth in life and learn to navigate those bumps that we talked about earlier. Okay, so now we are going to practice a deep breathing exercise. This is one that I do with a lot of my kids, a lot of the adolescents I work with. When we're talking about deep breathing, the switch we talked about earlier, the fight or flight switch, you can shut off that light switch with breathing, with learning to control your breath, right? Because fight or flight is that increased respirations. And if you can learn to slow those respirations down with your breath, it will flip the switch and the fight or flight will get turned off. And I like to do this one. I like because it's easy. If you're really stressed out and you're in public, you can excuse yourself and go to the bathroom and do it in the stall and nobody will know you're doing it. So basically what we're going to do, we're going to go through this 3 times. Make sure you're in a comfortable position. Try, not a ton of noise if you can. I know a lot of you are probably at home, so who knows what's going on in COVID times in your house, but try to make it a quiet space. And what we're going to do is we're going to take a deep breath in through the nose. And as the air is pooling into our belly, right, we are going to picture all of the anxiety, all of the stress that's in your body. It's going to pool with that air into your stomach. You're going to hold it for a second, and then you're going to blow all of that air with all of that anxiety and stress. It's just going to blow right back out of your body. Okay. I also want you to close your eyes while we're doing this. So we're going to practice that 3 times through, and then we'll check in. Okay, so close your eyes, deep breath in through the nose, all the way. Fill up your stomach with all of that anxiety, all of that stress. Hold it for 1 second, get it all in there, and now breathe it all out. Now let's take another deep breath in, all the way in, till your belly is full. You're taking all of that anxiety and stress that's in your body, wherever it is, and it's pooling right in your stomach with all the air. Hold it for a second and release. Now let's do that one more time through. In through the nose. Get it all into your stomach. Hold it for 1 second. And now blow it all out. Hopefully you're noticing a little bit of a difference, that your anxiety level has come down a little bit. We're not going to go through it again today. I just wanted to teach you this and go through it one time. If anybody has any thoughts, please throw it into the Q&A button. It's something I use in my life frequently. You can do it in the car. You can do it as much as you want. I usually will do the 3 cycles of it, just like we did, check in with myself. Even if it brings my anxiety level down, say I'm at a 6 and it only brings me to a 5, it's still a win. And maybe if I only get 1 point, maybe I go through it one more time. And again, this is something that the more you practice, the more able you will be able to use in an actual crisis situation. If you're not practicing, it's going to be very difficult for you to learn it or utilize it while the stress is occurring. So the more you practice, the more you'll be able to manage it. Okay, you guys. So last but not least, we are going to go through a guided meditation. Guided meditations are my favorite. And they're my favorite because for a lot of us, it is very difficult for us to be able to sit quietly in a room with our thoughts, right? Well, especially when you're first starting out. So guided meditations can really help with that because there's something for you to listen to. There's something for you to focus on while you're trying to get into that meditative state, right? And what is a meditative state? What does that mean? Basically, it's a state right in between consciously awake and asleep. And at that point in time, you can speak directly to somebody's subconscious. So your subconscious, all of us, is wreaking havoc on our lives every day with stress based on past traumas, based on worries. We don't even know the programs that are running in there. And sometimes we do. But meditation and that meditative state can speak directly to that subconscious and help us undo some of that. So the rest of our lives, our waking lives and our sleeping lives can actually be better. So we're going to give one a try. I am going to turn on my music, little meditation music. So just give me 1 second. Okay, I hope you guys can hear that. And what I want you to do is to find a comfortable position. You might want to move if you're not feeling super comfortable right now. The best way to meditate is to sit with your spine straight, so in a sitting position, hands up in your lap or in front of your heart. Wherever you're comfortable. If that's not comfortable for you, that's okay. I would rather have you go sit in a comfortable place. Okay. So let's get comfortable. Let's close our eyes. I want you to take a deep breath in through your nose. I want you to fill up as if you had wings. I want you to fill up your back with the air, feeling the breath moving in your body. Now blow that air out your mouth. Let's take another deep breath in, filling up the wings as if you had wings in your back. All the way in. Now blow it out. One more breath in, as deep as you can get. And breathe out. Now relax your face, noticing any tension in your mouth, in your forehead. Let it go. Relax your shoulders, letting all that tension go, letting them drop away from your ears. Let's take one more deep breath in and out. Notice any other areas in your body where you may be holding tension. In your feet, in your thighs, lower back. Let it go. Relax the whole body. Notice the relaxation in your body. Take one more deep breath in. Hold it and let it go out your mouth. Now allow your breath to return to normal. You're probably noticing lots of thoughts coming in. That's okay. Don't pay any attention. Just let them come and let them go. Now focus on the third eye, your third eye, the space in between your eyes on the inside of your head. Notice any patterns that might emerge, any colors. Just take a minute to sit in that space. Feel yourself relax. Remind yourself that you are enough, just as you are right now. That you are worthy of good things to happen in your life. You deserve to feel safe, comfortable, and confident in your body. You are worthy of accomplishment and success. Your contributions are unique and meaningful. And you are loved. When you're ready, slowly open your eyes and come back. Hopefully, this meditation will help bring energy and love into the rest of your day. Okay, I'm going to turn the music off. Hopefully, those of you that are still with me found that helpful. I do try to do those at least every night for 10 or 15 minutes. It can be very helpful. There's a whole bunch of them that are free right up on YouTube. All you have to do is Google guided meditations and you'll find them for everything. So if you're dealing with anxiety, you can find them for anxiety. If you're dealing with stress, depression, if you're having trouble sleeping, just Google, guided meditations for sleep, and you're going to get a bunch. They're really, really, really helpful. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed them. And I hope you're all kind of coming back, feeling a little bit more relaxed than you were before. Okay, so that pretty much concludes our presentation for today. I want to leave you with this meme right here. The start of self-love is self-honesty. So in order for us to really be able to find resiliency, really be able to create happiness in our life and learn to love ourselves, is to start with being honest about where we are, about what we need, and about how we feel. Okay, and I'm grateful for everybody who came to this today. Hopefully you'll get a chance to check out the rest of our Wellness Week with Herren events right up on our website. And just to end with the services that we offer, if any of you are struggling, we do offer free virtual online support groups. They're all run by licensed clinicians. All you have to do is go to our website, sign up, and log in. They're very easy. Lots of people find them very helpful. Our clinicians are amazing and awesome, as is the rest of our staff. We also offer 15-minute phone conversations with licensed clinicians. Those are also up on our website. You just sign up and it'll be a phone conversation. The clinician will reach out to you at that time. If you're struggling with a loved one who has substance use disorder, they can be very beneficial. And what we do, we offer treatment and recovery services. So if you are in recovery or you want to be in recovery, go to our website, herrenproject.org, and we offer resources and help for you. If you're a family member struggling with substance use disorder, we offer lots of things like what I just discussed, the 15-minute consults and the groups. All of those are up on our website as well. Prevention and wellness, we have Herren Project clubs in our school systems, which is awesome. You can find information as that on our website as well. And Team Herren Project is one of my all-time faves. It's there, we do events throughout the year in order to raise awareness and raise funds to continue to support all the services that we are able to provide for free. So all of this information is right up on herrenproject.org. And then that's just our team. So, and there's our contact information. If anybody is struggling and you're looking for help, that is where you go. So I'm going to start my video. Here I am. Hi, everybody. And if there are any questions, we got a couple minutes. I'm happy to answer a few for you. One of the questions is, I hope you offer more on the West Coast. Me too. We are working on that as we speak. We are trying to find more clinicians that are hopefully on the West Coast that are able to provide support groups that are more in your time zone. I know ours are kind of early for you guys, so we're working on it. Oh, thank you so much. Someone said, amazing job, Kristen. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much, Missy. That was very kind of you. I hope you guys got, learned a little bit about self-care and maybe implement some more practices into your routine to create resilience and just to live a happier life. So, another question, is that the number for the 15-minute conversation with clinicians? No, it is not. The 15-minute consults with the clinicians, you have to go to our website at herrenproject.org, and there's a place in there where you will click a link, and for the different clinicians, whoever you want to, or whoever you choose to sign up with, and a calendar will pop up of their availability and you schedule a session. So that's done all through our website. The number that's up on the screen right now is for people who are struggling with substance use disorder or their families that are looking for some help. If you're having trouble scheduling a 15-minute consult on our website, you can absolutely call that number and they will help you as well. Our team is awesome and they will help you navigate the site if you're struggling. So, but most of the family services up on our site, you schedule them right there on our website. So, okay, well, thank you guys. This was awesome. I'm grateful that you all came. And again, I hope you got something out of it. And I hope to see you in some more of the awesome events that we have for this week. Have a great week.